can bring enormous ways to utilize, harness, and capitalize on the digital identity ecosystem. The session is being moderated by Mr. Srikanth Nadhamuni, who is board member HDFC Bank. Mr. Nadhamuni was the founding head of technology of the Aadhaar project, where he helped design and implement the system from the UID Technology Center in Bangalore. He is the managing trustee of the e-Governance Foundation that he co-founded with Mr. Nandan Nilekani in 2003. He spent 15 years of his career as a technologist in Silicon Valley, California, at Sun Microsystems, Intel, Silicon Graphics, and internet startup WebMD. I invite Mr. Nadhamuni, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to be here at Vigyan Bhavan, 10 years after the journey of Aadhaar began. In fact, we did many conferences, many meetings here, and it brings back many memories of bringing registrars from states and banks, enrolling agencies, operators, device manufacturers, biometric providers, and so on here to sort of explain to them what we had put together and the concepts around Aadhaar and how it works. And, you know, it's indeed sort of a nostalgic journey for many of us. But one thing we were reminiscing after the inaugural session at the tea room at the back, and I want to sort of talk about the humble beginnings of the technology team of Aadhaar. In fact, we didn't have an office then yet. Here in Delhi, it was still set up at the Planning Commission, the then Planning Commission. In Bangalore, we had yet not set up the office. And Ganga is smiling about those days. And I rented an apartment in front of our house. And there was a small group of us. Okay, later it was called the TDU, the Technology Development Unit. We inducted Pramod Verma as our chief architect. He was here for a couple of days. We inducted Sanjay Jain as the chief product manager. He was here as well. We inducted Raj Mashruwala. He was in Silicon Valley. He was a TIP co-founder. He came to help us on the biometric aspect of things. And of course, Vivek took over soon after and became the head of biometrics. And then, of course, Vivek has stayed on for all the 10 years and continues to do a fabulous job here at Aadhaar as the chief product manager. Jagdish Babu, he was at Intel. He came on a sabbatical program onto Aadhaar, and he was so fascinated by Aadhaar, he quit Intel and joined us full time, and he helped on the micro ATM devices and so on. And of course, I was asked by Nandan to be the head of technology to set up the technology center in Bangalore. So this small group of the TDU, as it was later called, spent 6 months in an apartment designing a lot of these technology systems that you see. And there were several key decisions that happened because of that intense work before we actually implemented it. One, of course, I made an impassioned plea to Dr. Ram Sevak Sharma and Nandan Nilekani that we should build this ourselves, the Aadhaar technology. We shouldn't outsource it, put an RFP out and get somebody to do it. We thought nobody else could do this better than us. We had the best team in the world. So we embarked on building it ourselves. There were many other decisions: horizontal scalability of systems, you know, commodity hardware being used as opposed to specialized hardware, expensive hardware. Yes, no answer on authentication, which was privacy preserving. In fact, a lot of these debates happened way early to ensure that the technology reflected the real needs of what the government had placed before us. We used cutting-edge technology even for that time. Hadoop, the white paper on MapReduce had just come out from Google, and a beta implementation at Yahoo was available. We started using Hadoop. We had to do 1,000 trillion biometric matches every day, so we needed distributed compute. So a lot of, NoSQL databases, MongoDB, many advances were made. But we had many naysayers as well. In fact, Professor Jim Wayman at University of San Jose, when Raj Mashruwala met him on the biometrics and dedupe, he said, this is not possible, impossible. I still remember I was driving to Missouri to give a talk at the IIS Academy there, the Civil Services Academy. I got this call to say it's not possible, it's too hard. You need 6 football fields worth of hardware in order to dedupe 1 billion people. It's not going to work, and US had done some 150 million people then. And there was a paper from the London School of Economics that said India identity system will drown in a sea of false positives. Vivek, you remember that. So, of course, Vivek clearly had a plan. He knew exactly how to solve this problem, trading off FNIRs with FBIRs, and kept our accuracies good all through. But I'd like to say it was a small, humble beginning to put all this technology together, and not everybody was convinced that this will work. But today we're not here to talk about what we had done in the past, but the new advances, the innovations, the new technologies that can take Aadhaar 2.0 forward. Advances like the new biometrics that the last panel talked about, artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum computing, and so on. So we have a very august expert panel here. And I'd like to just go over the panel. Can we have the slides? Maybe I'll read it out of there. Sorry. Well, can we have Professor Anil Jain? Okay, well, that's okay. We'll continue. Dr. Manindra Agrawal, IIT Kanpur, is currently Professor and Program Director of Technology Innovation Hub in Cybersecurity at IIT Kanpur. He's a recipient of several awards and honors, including the Godel Prize, Fulkerson Prize, Humboldt Forschung Prize, it's a German award, SS Bhatnagar Prize, Infosys Prize in Mathematics, and a Padma Shri. He did his BTech and PhD in computer science from IIT Kanpur in 1986 and 1991, respectively. He's very famous for his landmark paper on the primality of numbers in polynomial time. And please give a round of applause to Dr. Manindra Agrawal. Mr. Rajesh Bansal, he was my colleague here at Aadhaar, CEO of the RBI Innovation Hub. Mr. Rajesh Bansal is the CEO of the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub, RBIH, as appointed by the RBIH board. Mr. Bansal has previously served as the Reserve Bank of India, in the Reserve Bank of India in various capacities, including in the areas of technology, payment systems, financial inclusion. Mr. Bansal was a member of the founding team of Aadhaar and specifically led the design of India's direct benefit transfer system also. A recipient of the prestigious Golden Jubilee Scholarship Scheme of the RBI, Mr. Bansal holds a master's degree from Duke University in International Development Policy, United States. Please give a round of applause to Rajesh Bansal. Professor Anil Jain, he is not here today. He is a professor at the Michigan State University. Anil K. Jain is a university distinguished professor in the Department of Computer Science at the Michigan State University, where he conducts research in pattern recognition, computer vision, and biometrics. He is the author of a number of books, including the Introduction to Biometrics, Handbook of Fingerprints, Handbook of Face Recognition, Handbook of Multi-Biometrics. He's pretty much written it all. He served on the National Academy's study on biometrics and the NIST Forensic Science Standards Board. Anil is a member of the National Academy of Engineering and a foreign member of the Indian National Academy of Engineering. He is known as the foremost expert on biometrics in the world. Please welcome Professor Anil Jain. And Professor Anil Jain's student, PhD student, we have Dr. Anoop Namboodiri from IIT Hyderabad. Anoop Namboodiri is a faculty member at the International Institute of Information Technology, Hyderabad, India. He is associated with the Center for Visual Information and Technology and heads the Biometrics and Security Identity Lab. He holds a BTech and PhD in Computer Science and Engineering. His research interests include biometrics, machine learning, computational imaging, and computer vision. He also serves as the Chief Science Officer of DreamView Inc. Please welcome Dr. Anoop Namboodiri. Mr. Mahesh Ramamoorthy from the CIO of Yes Bank. Mahesh is the Chief Information Officer of Yes Bank. In his role, he is the leading technology and digital transformation for the, in his role, he is leading the technology and digital transformation of the bank. Mahesh has over 3 decades of experience in BFSI technology space, over payments, banking technology segment, and with a focus on product design and enabling business capabilities, driving growth, delivering efficiencies, driving transformational programs. He holds a bachelor's degree in engineering with a specialization in electronics from the University of Mumbai and is certified information systems manager and Marshall Goldsmith certified stakeholder-centered coach. Please welcome Mr. Mahesh Krishnamurthy. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Anand Deshpande, could not be here. He's in the United States. So I will introduce him, and then we'll have his keynote address played here on video. Dr. Anand Deshpande is the founder, chairman, and managing director of Persistent Systems since its inception and is responsible for the overall leadership, strategy, and management of the company. Prior to founding Persistent Systems, Anand began his professional career at Hewlett-Packard Laboratories in Palo Alto, California, where he worked as a member of technical staff from May 1989 to October 1990. Anand holds a BTech honors in computer science and engineering from IIIT Kharagpur and an MS and PhD in computer science from Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Anand Deshpande.
My best wishes and warm greetings to all of you for attending this conference. I regret that I'm not able to participate in this event in person. Clearly, I'm missing a big and a great event. We are traveling in the US, and I'm grateful to the organizers for considering my participation through this video message. I feel both honored and privileged to have had the opportunity to be associated with the UIDAI since September 2016 as a part-time member of the board. During this period, I've had the opportunity to closely participate in strategic decisions and observe the hard work done by the dedicated UIDAI team. I take this opportunity to acknowledge their contribution and to thank them for their efforts. I would also like to call out the contributions of the CEOs, Dr. Ajay Bhushan Pandey, Pankaj Kumar, and now Dr. Saurabh Garg. Their dynamic leadership has helped the organization evolve continuously. As we participate in the technology session, I must acknowledge the contributions of Dr. Vivek Raghavan and the technology team at UIDAI. They have focused on research and delivered several vital innovations that support individual privacy and make it easier for using the Aadhaar infrastructure. In the last 20 months of intermittent lockdowns and many of us working from home through this pandemic, we have observed the importance of digital infrastructure. Just imagine if we had this similar pandemic 15 years back. The availability of affordable smartphones and the widespread availability of mobile internet have made it possible for a large and growing part of our population to be a part of this digital revolution. The pandemic, if anything, has accelerated the move to digital across the board. The government's push on getting all citizens to have bank accounts over the last few years has really helped us to support innovative digital payment solutions such as those led by the UPI and which are available in India alone. We are very proud of the success of UPI. It is very heartening to see the widespread acceptance and use of UPI across the country. The numbers are already staggering as the number of UPI transactions exceeded 4 billion in the month of October 2021. We are just at the beginning of this digital revolution. The ability to move money, such as with UPI transactions, the growth of e-commerce with the ability to place orders digitally, and the supply chain innovations that we are seeing. In this area, we are all just getting started. The infrastructure is in place, and our large population of over 1.3 billion people is hungry for new and exciting digital solutions. The exponential growth of digital and unicorns has demonstrated that much will happen in these areas over the next few years. It is very clear that digital identity plays a fundamental role in digital transactions, and I must commend Nandan Nilekani and his foresight in establishing the Aadhaar system for digital identity. Technology and applications of technology must evolve continuously. The Aadhaar infrastructure is no different and is evolving in multiple ways. Aadhaar has already demonstrated value through government's direct benefit transfer schemes, but I believe that we are well poised to play an equally important role in the next generation of digitization in our country. The UIDAI team is ready for this challenge and continues to innovate. The development of new innovations in artificial intelligence and machine learning has helped the UIDAI R&D team to deploy these algorithms for solving some of the pressing challenges. While most of the adult population is already enrolled, we continuously support updates which include biometric updates. AI and ML techniques have helped in improving the efficiency and quality of enrollment. This has helped in identifying and reducing fraud. The new Aadhaar card has a very sophisticated, secure QR code that includes the photograph. This, with the innovations in face-based authentication, we believe UIDAI will provide other means of authentication when fingerprint-based authentication may not be most convenient or appropriate. Machine learning and artificial intelligence have significantly enhanced the value of biometric capture, deduplication, and validation. In this session, other experts on this topic will share with you more details about these innovations. I'm particularly excited by the innovations in offline verification. Several things that we have done include the support for offline XML verification, which provides an effective mechanism to provide eKYC. In offline verification, the fact that tokens are generated and used asynchronously provides an additional layer of privacy for the residents. I'm super excited that offline verification techniques will provide a very cost-effective way of ensuring eKYC for all kinds of digital transactions. The Aadhaar infrastructure is very well established and well poised to be the backbone of new smart government applications. The Supreme Court's Aadhaar judgment from 2018, the privacy judgment, and the other guidelines that have been provided are excellent guide rails for us to operate the Aadhaar infrastructure. The data privacy laws will also reinforce these guide rails. I believe the Aadhaar infrastructure, coupled with new technologies such as crypto, blockchain, etc., can deliver value while staying within these well-defined laws that have been already formulated. For the last 7 years, as part of my philanthropic venture, the Asra Foundation, I have been working closely with nano entrepreneurs, self-employed or those employing between 1 and 10 employees. These entrepreneurs have annual revenue of rupees 5 lakhs or up to 1 crore. And I'm happy to share that our team of more than 40 dedicated members has influenced more than 140,000 small businesses over these years. While individually these businesses are small, as a group they constitute the largest number of job creators and employ the largest number of individuals in our country. This group, unfortunately, is not very well organized and they are not well supported by the systems that are prevalent today. In my opinion, they are the silent and ignored middle of our economy. They are looking for working capital and short-term loans in the range of rupees 5 lakhs to 50 lakhs. These businesses need efficient ways to access funds. Banks with their traditional processes are not well set up to support these businesses. I'm very excited by the innovations I see in the fintech revolution that we are in the midst of. I believe that efficient and effective eKYC provided by Aadhaar-like systems will be the cornerstone of these evolutions and innovations. And I believe the Aadhaar 2.0 would provide a crucial role in the support of the fintechs of the future. I really look forward to the innovations in flow-based lending, fine granularity insurance, and more sophisticated payments for this ignored and silent, but the largest segment of our economy. While fintechs are in full bloom, the Web 3.0 revolution led by decentralization is starting to take shape. I'm very excited by the developments in distributed autonomous organizations, DAOs, and decentralized finance. I believe that the DeFi revolution will dramatically reduce the cost of financial transactions. After all, the financial industry is nearly 15% of our economy and is ready to be disrupted. The technology for DeFi, such as crypto, tokens, blockchains, etc., is evolving rapidly. Secure identity and eKYC are crucial and missing building blocks to bring these technologies to the mainstream. I believe that the Aadhaar infrastructure is well suited to provide online secure eKYC. As no other country has this infrastructure, we must take the lead and innovate in this area. I believe that the governments are keen to ensure that the minority interests are protected without missing out on taxing on these transactions. I believe that the DeFi community must educate the governments and work closely with the regulators. Not doing so creates a massive risk of over-regulation, which will kill this innovation in this space. I'm very excited that Dr. Saurabh Garg and the UID AI leadership team has decided to organize this event. I am confident that these deliberations will identify areas of improvement for us at UID AI. I promise that we will take this feedback and evolve Aadhaar 2.0 to be very valuable to provide support to all our residents. I thank you all for participating in this event, and thank you very much for inviting me. Jai Hind.
Thank you. So we'll get started. We have a whole range of areas to cover, so we'll keep the answers short too, so that we can cover all the areas that you guys are experts in. So firstly, I want to start on the biometric area, Anoop. So on one hand, Fingerprint had its challenges. We have a large agrarian population which have problems with ridges as they work on the fields. We also have a lot of old people who have dry fingers which had issues. But on the other hand, now India has the largest database of fingerprints in the world. So what can we do now moving forward to use that enormous amount of data with AI and so on? What are the advances in fingerprint technology that can take us forward?
Thank you, Srikanth. So as you rightly said, in the initial years of Aadhaar, the primary biometrics have been fingerprint and iris. And I fondly remember the discussions that we had in that department that you said at the beginning, early years of Aadhaar. So from those days, what has changed up till now in terms of the technology is that the accuracy levels of fingerprint and iris have been pretty high and far more than enough for the purpose of deduplication. And what has happened in the last 10 years is, as everybody knows, this advances in AI and machine learning and deep learning that has come along. What has changed? So the primary impact has been exactly the point that you mentioned, that the quality of fingerprints are not very good for a large majority of the population. And the traditional techniques have been hampered by that quality. And the advantage of this new deep learning based techniques is that it is able to look at fingerprints as a whole as opposed to the specific minutiae that are used in traditional matching methods, and do a leapfrog in terms of accuracy in the matching. With the existing database and specifically with the poor quality fingerprint, which has been the bottleneck of traditional fingerprint matching systems. So essentially this has enabled the improvement in accuracy. That's one aspect. And if you look at recent competitions on fingerprint and iris, several of these competitions, the answers, if you see that what is your confidence level of this particular accuracy that they report, they say not available, not confident enough. What does that mean? It's not good enough? No. It basically says that the best of the databases they have are not good enough to measure the accuracy. It's too high. And the only way to measure these effectively is now with huge databases like the one Aadhaar has got. So this is one interesting point, that data and algorithms, deep learning algorithms, have now enabled technologies which is taking the accuracies to a very high level, where now you have to have much larger database to even evaluate them. And the second interesting point with respect to Aadhaar is that, if you look at deep learning based solutions or modern AI solutions, it essentially has got three components to it. There is algorithms, there is data, and then there is compute. So algorithms development, fortunately, the trend has been that most of these algorithms that have been put out in open source, so it's available for all of us to look at. Computation power has become significantly cheaper in the last few years, and Aadhaar is blessed with huge amount of compute power anyway available to it. So the third key component that everybody is after is data. And in this specific sense, Aadhaar is very nicely placed where you have all the three components available inside Aadhaar. So now it can actually create, and it has already created with help of Vivek and his team and so on, that the solutions that can actually be better than the state of the art in the world can be developed inside Aadhaar, because all the three components can assemble inside. The data need not go outside. The solutions can be built inside.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we did a POC in the earlier days, proof of concept study of 84 million sample size, and found that the accuracies were quite good before we embarked on the whole country. If I remember right, the true positive rate was 99.94 something, and the true negative rate was also right up in 99.965 or something very high. And it's continued, my belief is it's continued that as we have enrolled 1 billion people. So now talking a little bit about, we didn't use face as much for matching. We use the fusion of fingerprint and iris largely, yes, because face has come about much more recently, especially with deep learning techniques. So tell us a little bit about face as a biometric. Can we now embark on face verification? Because like the last panel was saying, we all have smartphones, or a large number of people have smartphones, and you don't need a separate device. You can do a face auth very easily.
So yeah, that's a very good point, because you know, if you look at the poster childs of success of AI, face has been one of those use cases where there has been huge impact in terms of the accuracy. And once again, this has gone to a level where most of the data sets, it's not able to measure the accuracy. They're going with data sets that are so difficult that you are trying to recognize faces which are like, you know, 15 pixels by 15 pixels, and you look at it, you can't even recognize the face, and you are asking these algorithms to recognize those faces.
And they can?
And to some extent they can now. But we are, at least in the case of Aadhaar, that's not an issue at all, because you have reasonably high resolution databases. We are not happy with the face quality that we have on our Aadhaar cards maybe, but for machines they are really good. They are extremely high quality images in terms of its ability to recognize.
Nobody likes their photo, but that's nothing to do with Aadhaar.
That has nothing to do with the ability to recognize. So that has significantly improved, and now you can actually consider face also as a first-class citizen along with fingerprint and iris now.
Okay, wonderful. Before we move on to Professor Jain on biometrics for children, on iris, I remember sitting at enrollment centers and seeing old people have a tough time. And the enrollment operator would say, keep your eyes open long and so on, and they'd get tired and they'd be watering, and they'd say, okay, sit down for a little bit and come back and so on. I've seen a few of these. So now, are there improvements in iris? I hear of iris at a distance and so on. Are there improvements that can solve these problems for us? And has deep learning done anything to iris, to improve iris?
So in the case of iris, the solutions that used to exist in iris was very much in line with the deep learning solutions in terms of the nature of that feature extraction and so on. So in that sense, there has been some improvement definitely here. You know, the accuracies have approximately doubled. If you want, the error rates have about become half from about 10 years back. But there has not been a landslide as in the case of others. But in terms of sensing, yes, there have been a lot of improvement in terms of capturing iris at a distance and so on. They are still pretty costly for a large-scale deployment like in
so if you do deep learning, it's probably internally doing some sort of Gabor transform anyway? It
is doing very close to a Gabor wavelet in the first layers of the deep learning. So it actually, you can see that it is learning those aspects. So at least in the case of iris, our traditional knowledge have been pretty good. They came from signal processing background.
But we used to do a lot of pre-processing, cutting it up and making it into a rectangle before the match. Do we need to do all that in a AI-based method?
So that aspect has improved in terms of the ability to detect the exact iris and its the inner outer rings and how to process it. There are solutions now exist which doesn't have to do those kind of pre-processing. You can directly recognized from the eyes.
Wonderful. Well, I want to move on to Professor Jain. We had asked him, Aadhaar does not enroll biometrics for children below 5 years. And I think that at that time the policy was we will do it at 5, perhaps in the school when the child goes to school, and then at 15 as the fingerprints become larger and so on and so forth. Now Professor Jain has done some very interesting work at Michigan State on enrolling children at a lower age even. So can we play the video of Professor Jain's video?
Hello everyone, I want to thank Srikanth Nadhamuni for inviting me to this session to speak about Aadhaar for children. I think we have made great strides in biometric recognition over the past 25 years, and one of the most impressive systems is the Aadhaar, which has enrolled about 1.3 billion individuals. That's almost 1/6 the population of the world. But Aadhaar, as you know, starts at the age of 5, even though no birth certificate is checked at the time of enrollment. But generally, the child is at the age of 5 and Aadhaar number is issued. And I think what we would like to do is to include as many children as possible. So over the past 10 years, this minimum cutoff age for capturing the biometric data for deduplication is 5 years, but I believe we need to make an effort to lower the age to perhaps 3. So next slide. I would like to show you why is it important to know who is this child, whether it is for authentication or whether it is for search. The number of missing children, the statistics reports, official statistics, that 17 kids go missing daily in Delhi. Vaccination camp, all the international healthcare agencies, including the Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, is interested in determining which child has been vaccinated. And then the Food Distribution Center, the World Food Program, reports that there's a huge amount of fraud associated at the Food Distribution Center when the same child is claimed by multiple families. So for all these reasons, we need an identity assigned to each child rather than depending on the identity of child associated with the child's parents. Because it's not always the case that the child is often brought to a vaccination camp or the healthcare center by the parents sometimes. The sibling, older siblings, or the grandparents or the neighbors may bring the child to the camp. So this is the information available on the Aadhaar portal. What is involved at the time of enrollment or registration. And for enrolling children, in case of children below 5 years, parents or guardian's name, Aadhaar and biometrics have to be provided at the time of enrollment. So basically, below the age of 5, the child does not have his or her own identity. It's always linked to the parent's identity, and no biometric data is currently collected for children below the age of 5. I remember asking this question with the UID officials about why the age of 5 was selected for issuing the Aadhaar. And the answer I got was that at age of 5, child understands the instructions, can listen to where to stand, how to hold the iris scanner, and so forth. But I think we probably took a safer bet in terms of setting the age. First of all, the number of children which are born every year in India is about 25 million births per year. So right now, based on this and considering that Aadhaar is issued at the age of 5, we have 125 million kids at any given time who who do not have a Aadhaar number. So the Center for Disease Control, CDC, in the United States defines an infant as 0 to 1 year of age. Toddlers, there are 2 stages in toddlers, 1 to 2, and toddlers 2 to 3, and then preschoolers is defined as 3 to 5. But I think the most important statement I found on the CDC website is that by age 3, a child can follow simple instructions and be understood. So following this, it appears that we can start enrolling children at the age of 3, because at that point we can instruct the child where to stand for getting the face image captured, how to place the hand on the fingerprint scanner to capture 442 fingerprints, and how to hold the iris scanner. So what we need to determine in terms of the proof of concept is what is the lowest age at which we can capture face, fingerprint, iris for effective deduplication and authentication. So there has been work done on recognition of children based on biometrics, but most of that effort is sort of not done in any systematic way, and perhaps focused more on fingerprint than any other modality. And they are essentially small-scale studies and focus more on authentication because they do not have researchers do not have access to a large database of children for deduplication. So my recommendation is essentially that Aadhaar conduct a proof of concept where children starting at the age of 3 and even possibility at 2 their biometric be captured using the existing enrollment ecosystem, and then see how the recognition systems perform. I remember a similar proof of concept when I initially got involved with Aadhaar in 10 or 12 years ago, about the fusion of iris and fingerprint, and based on that proof of concept for 20,000 or so individuals, it was determined that fusion is necessary and useful for deduplication. So with that, I will stop. I'm sorry I cannot be physically present to answer your question, but I'll be happy to field questions and suggestions for clarification through email. But I really feel that Aadhaar is in an excellent position to undertake this proof of concept, which will provide guidance to other countries who are undertaking similar systems. Thank you very much.
So basically, he's saying that we can do enrollment of children with biometrics at 3 years, and their tests are showing that it is possible right now. So that is something for us to consider. His team has been contributing quite a bit. In fact, in a lot of the deep learning and the newer methods, they've been doing many studies. We'll talk more about it on liveness and so on. But we thank Professor Jain for his contributions to our project, as well as sending us good PhD students like Namboodiri to help us. With that, let's move on. I want to shift focus from biometrics. We'll come back a little bit more again to liveness and detection. We didn't talk much about it. We'll get to banking. We have 2 experts here. We have Rajesh Bansal, who was with us at Aadhaar. He was from the RBI. He worked with us at Aadhaar, and now he's back at RBI. But interestingly, he's the CEO of the Innovation Hub at RBI. Rajesh, it would be lovely for you to spend a minute to tell us what you're doing at the Innovation Hub, and then I can ask you some questions regarding banking.
So thanks, Srikanth, for inviting me over, and thanks to UIDI and CEO Mr. Garg for inviting me. And as Srikanth started, please bear with some bit of homecoming, memories. That the fact that we are the founding team, and we been through a lot of things, including my ex-boss Mr. AP Singh is sitting here. I'll talk to you about eKYC, But first about the Innovation Hub. Innovation Hub is a new subsidiary set up by the RBI this year with the sole purpose of fostering and evangelizing innovation in the financial sector. And I seem to, live back Aadhaar days where we defined a mission, and the mission that we are defining for ourselves. How can the Innovation Hub foster and evangelize innovation to enable affordable, suitable financial products to 1 billion people in a secure, frictionless manner? So a lot of it, what I heard today, and unfortunately I couldn't attend in person yesterday, echoes with the work that I want to do. And we're based out of Bangalore, and the key pillars that we are looking at is how do we look at new product innovation, because we have not served large cohorts of population in India with the right financial products, as a dairy farmer, smallholder farmer, whoever. But the second one, which is most important, I'll come to the critical role UIDAI plays in this, process innovation. How do we ensure that we reduce friction in the financial system? And you and I can, if we can get a loan in 2 minutes on a digital lending app, how do we enable that 1 billion people can do that through various models which are evolving in India? And last but not the least is the policy innovation. So this is where I am. Thanks, Srikanth, for allowing me the introduction to the Innovation Hub.
Wonderful. Well, you were working on DBT transfers, especially with your knowledge of the banking system and how to route monies directly to the recipient across the country. Tell us now, forward-looking, what are the kinds of things, for instance, the India stack has come up with UPI and Aadhaar, account aggregator and OCEN and so on. Are there ways in which Aadhaar can be even more useful to the India stack protocols?
Thanks, Srikanth. It's a definite yes, yes, and yes. So the point is, again, whether it is electronic KYC, which was introduced, I don't know how many of you know, it was not part of the original design. It was a eureka moment in a meeting with the FIU when we said we have to look at the fact that if 1 billion people will have Aadhaar, how will 1 billion people have access to formal financial services? And 2 years we debated with FIU and DOR, and finally came out with what we call as eKYC. Now coming to the point you said, the account aggregator, OCEN and UPI, the fact is if we have to ensure resilience of the financial sector, including the fintech players, a robust ID system is the most critical. And in my first month of joining, whenever I spoke to any of the fintech founders, their concern was, India built the world's largest open digital ID system, but we have serious constraints in accessing it. But I'm glad to know that UIDAI has taken some steps to resolve that, and a lot of fintechs will be able to seamlessly use it. Specifically talking on the next $500 million on the account aggregator framework, as you are all aware, it allows democratization of credit. But the challenge that I see is that it is democratization of credit for a smartphone savvy user and not for the next $500 million, where we want to make a real difference. So on that, we are looking at, we're talking to various entities. Can we look at an assistant account aggregator system where Aadhaar plays a critical role? The way we kind of invented, moved from ATM to micro ATM, which is nothing but an assisted ATM. We are examining, is there a way to move to an assisted account aggregator where somebody can go to 1 million micro ATMs out there and give consent, and the entire framework or account aggregator kicks in. So I would say that that is a critical foundation for this country to move to the next level. And glad to know that Aadhaar is looking at unlocking the next level of innovation.
Wonderful. Mahesh, you are CIO at the Yes Bank. So further going into banks using Aadhaar, you have implemented perhaps eKYC in a major way at Yes Bank. So tell us about some of the things that have worked well for you, and what could we do further to help the banking system and payments and the finance industry in general.
Yeah, thanks, Srikanth, and thank you for having me here. Thank you, Dr. Garg, and to Srikanth for having me over here. Really privileged to be in the midst of such distinguished team out here. I'm learning a lot. I think this today has been a great learning. So I think from a banking perspective, if you just wind back about a decade ago, probably, just look, and all of us who tried to open an account a decade back or even 8 years ago, probably it took us about a couple of days, a day or at least, if not more, where you need to submit your forms, your physical papers, get all of that sorted before a bank goes through its process and gets it offline through a postman or someone comes and delivers. What's Aadhaar has really done and what's the digital ecosystem that has changed today is we are now looking at onboarding customers probably in less than 10 minutes. Now, anything more than 2 hours, at least I would see in some of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, probably you've lost the game. If you're trying to do it possibly in tier 4 cities, they at least want that engagement to be better, the experience to be better, because there is enough clamor around for that. So to me, I think the very fact that we've had a fantastic innovation around eKYC coming in, along coupled with the whole Aadhaar capabilities, I think has opened the doors for banking to be extended across. It probably started off in a very different way. It germinated itself now, and today it's possibly the linchpin in terms of how every account is essentially open. So to me, I think the way I look at it is today banking uses it more from an identification perspective and an easy authentication, not necessarily from a proof perspective, because that's a separate piece that really goes through there. So I would say that the way I look at it now, and what Rajesh was really mentioning, is that there is huge amount of opportunities, massive amount of opportunities the banking sector would be able to.
Can you go through some use cases?
Absolutely. So let me put it very simple use cases, right? Today when you look, and he talked about account aggregator. Yeah. And it's a classic case. What I'm saying is, when we started when we looked at the whole model and we want to adopt it, and banks are now jumping into it and are signing up, I think account aggregator coupled with Aadhaar-based authentication is going to be a simply fantastic opportunity. It's going to change the game, and that's...
So Aadhaar can be the consent giver. When you want to give consent through the account aggregator, you could put your fingerprint or iris in something.
Absolutely. The way I look at it is, actually, it has to go a bit more, the way I look at it. Now, fingerprint is nowadays probably pass. I mean, it's there, but I think the biometric and the facial recognition, if that's going to be used coupled with it, trust me, as you go further into the tier 4, tier 3, and you reach further down, that's going to be the great game changer for us. And that is what is going to help from an account aggregation and the ability for banks and the other financial institutions to lend down to the lowermost sector. I think that's most critical.
Yeah, we were talking about how, like for instance, on a phone, you can just open the phone by using your face. Perhaps Aadhaar Face could do those kind of open apps.
And to take lead from that, Srikanth, I think what we should know, Aadhaar has a fantastic app called M-Aadhaar. M-Aadhaar should effectively, if it can enhance itself and become a UPI authenticator at some point in time for large value transaction or something, trust me, it is going to be a game changer. Today we are sending passwords down. There is dependency on the network. There is depending on two-factor in a different way. But yeah, there's a fantastic app. Now I believe you can have SDKs. I've heard about an SDK in the previous session. If that's available, coupled with the biometric, yeah, it doesn't even need you to, it's frictionless, it helps you go fast, and it is secure.
Great ideas.
So that really goes down to what a bank is looking at. What any customer in a bank looks at. Trust, it looks at security, and more importantly, experience. It's the 3 areas that a customer always looks at the bank. And with this kind of an integration, I do believe it's a game changer for us. And I really look forward for that.
Wonderful. Rajesh, back to you. One of the biggest things that have happened in the last 5 to 10 years is blockchain. While of course, the cryptocurrencies are in the news, we are not talking about private cryptocurrencies. We are talking about the underlying technology of blockchain, which seems to be very powerful and has a lot of uses. Now, of course, the RBI has put out a white paper on CBDC, the central bank digital currency. Very interesting paper. And it looks like there are 60 countries that are already launching CBDCs or working on it in some form or the other. So and where does Aadhaar come into the picture? We were discussing as an identity platform. One of the things that these cryptos have had an issue with is anonymity and the fact that, you know, the bad actors could be in that system. But combining blockchain implementation for digital currency with Aadhaar high assurance KYC and authentication might be a game changer in our context, in our country. So what do you think about CBDC and how do we go forward with Aadhaar helping CBDC?
Thanks, Srikanth. First, I'd like to qualify that I'm not RBI and I'm not saying anything official about CBDC, so I don't know. It's up to the governor to take a call on that. But having said that, you mentioned that about 60 countries, and my research over the last 2 years shows that a number of countries are at various stages of CBDCs. Some of them are doing theoretical research, some of them have gone into piloting, and the real pilot is happening only in China, with about 10 million users being, over the last 1.5 years. So what are the learnings? First learning, India is honestly the most well-placed among any nation to leverage the robust ID system that we have built to potentially ensure that a great customer due diligence happens as and when there is a plan to launch a CBDC. We are not aware whether there is a plan or what happens on that. But I'll give you an example from China. What is happening is currently FaceAuth is what is used in pilots being done by 10 million people. So you basically have the digital yuan on the phone and use FaceAuth and pay 100 rupees or 100 yuan. So that is what is happening. And there are learnings from the fact that India's robust ID will play a super critical role. On the blockchain, as you said, I'm not sure whether blockchain is the most appropriate technology for central bank digital currencies around the world. Most of the countries are not necessarily exploring blockchain, CBDCs, and ID together. But the technologists out there could answer that better. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So talking about blockchain, Dr. Agrawal has been working on cryptography, has been working on blockchains. And I would like to sort of ask you, we are discussing identity, Aadhaar identity, we're discussing banking on one side, perhaps there is blockchain. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe your work on blockchains, as well as, you were telling me about how we can improve privacy with some of the ideas you had. So can you share with us these ideas?
Yeah, first of all, I thank the organizers for inviting me to this wonderful event, and Srikanth for having me on the panel. I think the speakers have already said there were some wonderful directions to where the Aadhaar 2.0 evolved to. And one of the things that we have been discussing in this session is the use of blockchain in enabling better privacy security of Aadhaar. There are multiple possibilities exist here. I'll just name two. One, today we can go to Aadhaar's UIDAI site and verify my own log of for past 6 months of Aadhaar usages. What if all the Aadhaar logs were on a blockchain, which were encrypted with the proviso that an individual can decrypt his or her logs. The rest cannot be seen. That would provide, for example, a user more confidence in that these are the public logs available, things cannot be tampered, and yet the privacy will still be there because one can only see one's own logs. Another one is in the offline ID verification. Aadhaar is being widely used for offline ID verification, either giving a photocopy of the Aadhaar card or the method which is suggested by UIDAI, which is to download this XML frame of your Aadhaar, which is digitally signed by UIDAI, and then one can share a PDF file with whoever one wants to verify. There are still some privacy issues here. For example, if one shares a PDF file of the Aadhaar details with whoever is the verifier, that verifier can carry out what is called a replay attack. At least in principle, can use it to verify the ID incorrectly somewhere else. Whereas there is a new technique which is called the self-sovereign identity, which is available today, which is based on blockchain. And what it allows one to do is to have, for example, that Aadhaar app that we have, a certain application within that, using which one can do an offline ID verification, which actually runs a zero-knowledge protocol. So the verifier, although gets convinced that the ID is genuine, verifier doesn't learn what that ID is and therefore cannot carry out any replay attack. So these are the things that can bring in more privacy and security features into Aadhaar, and going forward, I think that will maybe very useful.
Thank you so much. But there's one other area I want to talk to you about, which is quantum computers. The use of quantum physical phenomenon has been used by these machines, which are incredibly fast. They use, instead of a binary system, they use a qubit system, and they have enormous compute power. And I read an article at the MIT Technology Review that said they can break the 2048-bit RSA encryption in 8 hours using quantum computers. Now, encryption and cryptography is the basis of blockchain, is the basis of all our digital signatures, basis of our Aadhaar system, and so on. Is this a threat to the entire encryption system itself? And are there ways to solve it as well?
Yeah, it is a threat. In fact, it's a threat is very serious because it looks increasingly likely that we will have large-scale quantum computers in next 10 to 20 years. And if once we have that, then not only Aadhaar, I mean the entire internet based transaction system will collapse, because each one of that is based on use of public key cryptography, which uses either RSA or ECC, one of the two systems, and both are susceptible to breaking by quantum computers. Fortunately, there is a solution in the offing. For past 3 years, a worldwide contest is being run by NIST to identify what is called post-quantum cryptographic algorithms. And today we are nearly completion of that process. 6 finalists have been shortlisted, which are undergoing further review, and early next year is when it is the results are supposed to be announced. One of the 6 will make the cut, and each one of these 6 has very strong properties which tells us that it is not amenable to breaking by quantum computers. And one expects that once we have finalized the PQC algorithm, slowly the entire systems will move over next decade or so to usage of these systems.
Wonderful. In the morning, the Honorable Justice Sikri talked about data security and privacy, and towards the end of his speech, he gently reminded us not to break the trust that has been reposed by the Supreme Court. So I want to talk about privacy, especially from a technology perspective. You talked about self-sovereign identity. Can you tell us a little bit about how could it be implemented? I mean, if we were to do it on top of Aadhaar, we can't do yet another Aadhaar project, but if we were to do it on top of Aadhaar, how would you do it?
Oh, it's quite simple. It is just a small application which would use existing Aadhaar system. All that is needed is for UIDAI to put out a specific framework in which they will publish, or they will share the ID of a user, and that framework will go on a blockchain, which therefore can be accessed and checked by anybody. And then whenever as a user wants to you make use of SSI-based system. So this, let's say there is a application within Aadhaar, that application will allow the user to access the UIDAI system and download the biometric and other ID on the computer itself, on the smartphone that is. And once that is done, and that is, then a verifier can go to the Aadhaar UIDAI site, download that framework, and engage in a zero-knowledge protocol with the phone of the person whose ID is being verified. And that protocol convinces the verifier that the ID is genuine without revealing the information about it.
So you're basically saying, I will download my ID information on my own phone, and I will authenticate and verify myself with
That's
various
correct.
parties.
Yes, that's correct.
And it will be, we can ensure that the data is not tampered with, that I have not changed the data and so on.
Yes.
It is the same as
It's the same thing. It can be formally, these are all things can be
formally
formally
proven that it works. Okay, wonderful. So there were other things. In fact, Anoop, on the area of biometrics, there were several ways in which you could spoof biometrics. You could create gummy fingers and say that you're somebody else using their fingerprints. You could wear contact lenses with other patterns in it, and so on, and spoof systems. Now, I've heard it's improved quite a bit with AI. Can you tell us, again, this is related to security and privacy, at least fraud detection and stopping fraud. Can you tell us a little bit about liveness detection and how it's improved with AI?
So liveness detection has actually come into fore in the last 5-6 years when these systems have actually been deployed at a large scale. And fortunately, along with that, significant improvements have been done to the what you call as presentation attack detection, or PAD. So there have been a lot of competitions that have been running around the world which try to do presentation attack detection, and that actually show that it is quite possible to do high quality detection of presentation attacks. But just like any other security system, this is always a cat and mouse game. So the different ways in which you can attack a system keeps improving, whereas at the same time ways to detect it also keeps improving. So from a futuristic perspective going ahead, Aadhaar already has got these presentation attack detection systems in place, which are primarily based on deep learning solutions. But it is extremely important that we keep playing the game and we keep on improving our detection abilities, because at some point, at the starting point, if things fail, then there's no way to recover from.
Professor Jain was telling me that they have looked at 14 different spoofs, and today the deep learning, AI-based deep learning algorithms are able to catch all the 14 spoofs at 99% accuracy, yes. And the NIST hasn't been able to break it yet. So I think there are lots of advances that have happened that I think we need to embrace and improve our systems, especially on fraud detection. Wonderful. So you also worked on some privacy preserving biometric authentication methods. Can you tell us a little bit quickly about that?
So that is very close to what Professor Manindra Agrawal talked about regarding the cryptographic methods and zero knowledge proofs and so on, but specifically adapted to the case of biometric authentication. So usually when you talk about these cryptographic protocols, you assume that you don't want to reveal any information to the other person. But to understand the meaning of it, this is the level of secrecy in that or privacy in that is extremely high. Whereas as a biometric practitioner, what I would say is that I don't want to keep that level of secrecy. For example, if I have a bowl of all faces in the world that ever existed and will ever exist, and if I randomly pick one face image and keep it face down here and ask somebody can you draw this picture, what I've selected, which I also don't know, you also don't know, what is the probability that what you draw exactly matches with this face? It's, practically nil. So at that level of security is good enough is what, from a biometric perspective that you want to ensure. Anything beyond that is actually not really useful, because biometric systems has got a certain level of error rate, and this would be anyway far below that. So it's possible to actually devise solutions that are far more efficient if you consider the fact that you're actually doing biometric matching and not a generic zero-knowledge proof. So theoretical underpinnings are extremely important, but these kind of solutions can now be incorporated into the platform of Aadhaar. And if Aadhaar is going to become, from, as we mentioned, not a service, not a platform, maybe a ecosystem enabler, then it is, it's quite nice to have these kind of privacy-preserving solutions also available, like what Professor Manindra talked
Absolutely. I have a note here about 10 minutes ago that said I have 15 minutes, so I have about 5 minutes now. So let's open it up for questions so that the audience can also participate in this. Any questions? Yes, Professor Gadre. There's a person with a mic.
So, Professor Namboodiri, maybe, I'll ask you and, of course, all the other panelists. I'm a little curious about this liveness detection, because this is something which a lot of people have been speaking about.
Yes.
So, can one do liveness detection with a combination of features and other behavioral, things like, for example, ask challenges, as Professor Muna says. And can one do it only with features? So this is my, dilemma.
So there are 3 levels of things possible. So the weakest thing is just using features. And what we talk about, like 99% ability to detect, is only using features. On top of it, if you start using multi-factor authentication, like what you and Professor Muna said, that would significantly improve it. And even higher level would be if you are able to actually have devices, hardware itself, which can actually do. But as a generic ecosystem, from the point of view Aadhaar, probably purely feature-based or even multi-factor would be more appropriate.
Vivek was telling me the other day, we were having dinner together about confidential computing, and he's been working on it, and it's certainly a very important area to preserve privacy. Since you also have the mic right next to you, Vivek, can you tell us a little bit about it? Just took the opportunity.
Oh, it's on. So I think this is just, I think lots, as we see that there are these, we talked about the, trusted execution environments and hardware root of trust. And this now starts not just from a perspective of an individual device. We can actually say that a particular virtual machine actually has got only trusted environments running on that, and you can actually attest that from remotely. And what that leads to, actually, we're actually trying to use that to build sandboxes. Okay, and this is not what I'm doing necessarily. Otherwise, it's sandboxes where what it happens is that you don't have to trust an entity. You're actually trusting a VM that it actually only contains particular kinds of containers, and also all I/O from that are actually, it's a policy-controlled sandbox. So actually a very interesting concept of how people can share data in a way that becomes extremely secure. But, it's an interesting topic, but I don't want to take away from
it. No, it's fantastic. And I think, Dr. Muna, you sort of alluded to it as well during your talk. Yeah.
Any other questions? One question to Professor Dr. Anoop Namboodiri. Professor Anil Jain showcased that, yes, we can do the pilot with 3 year instead of 5 years. Now we can 3 year or 2 year. But see, maybe there's some studies in the iris, right? And maybe we can capture the iris maybe in 1 month child or 2 month child, or is there any repercussion or any study? Because see, the point he mentioned that the missing child, that maybe if we are able to capture the biometric of the child as soon as possible. And idea is that the iris can be captured from using the smartphone or the mobile, because now many mobile can come with the iris inbuilt camera. So can you throw some light at how soon we can capture the iris of the child?
So that's a bit more tricky, especially with Indian irises where we have darker pigmentation on the iris. Using regular cameras, the quality of iris texture that is captured is far lower than what is possible with a light colored iris. So yes, there have been studies on camera-based iris capture, but those work far better in the case of light colored irises. So with very young children, the probability, like even for the adults, we jokingly call it the iris dance, where you have the iris camera and you're trying to kind of place your face right for the capture. And with young children, and especially newborns, it becomes extremely difficult for them to keep the eyes open and the eyes stable so that the iris can be captured at higher quality. I haven't seen any study for newborns with iris, but with fingerprints, the study that Professor Jain said, we have done some pilot study, partly was in Agra and so on, Jaipur, and these data capture showed that even with infants, there is sufficient amount of fingerprint information which can be used. The discussion more is about, can you actually use that fingerprint to match with fingerprints when they are adults, which is not necessarily the problem in the case of missing children. So I think fingerprints is eminently usable in the case of young infants to be able to at least detect issues like missing children. So, and we should definitely use that.
Okay. Well, we are standing between you and lunch. Okay, one last question.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, sir. Chinmay Joshi here. Sir, my question is not exactly connected with the title of the session, but what I am suggesting is, a person is having already an identity called Aadhaar. He's having an identity number. We are taking the identity from the customer. I'm from banking, so we're taking the identity from the customer in terms of Aadhaar card and duplicating that number by creating a CKYC number. So as we are ushering to the 2.0, so can we merge both of them, both the systems? Can we do that?
Yeah, Rajesh, can you address this question?
Thanks for asking, and I nudge Srikanth, I'll take that question, because I'm working actively with CERSAI, the CKYC system. But you have to understand that, CERSAI came after Aadhaar, and there are other use cases of CERSAI, and hence it's a good point. A lot of banks which I consider a working group which are suggesting why not merge. There are a lot of legal reasons why CERSAI came up, and I don't want to go into that. So CERSAI will exist as it exists today. It has its own protocols and other reasons for existence, and Aadhaar becomes a primary identifier and not as a common ID pool which CERSAI is. So both of them have different functions. But we are trying to see how to make it seamless and potentially use some authentication mechanism of UIDI possibly there. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you should talk to AP Singh. He had some thoughts on that.
Yeah. Excuse me, I just have a small observation. I am Amit Sharma. I am Secretary IT Department, J&K Government. I have a little observation to make, just a food for thought, because it's a session related to innovation and thinking about new technologies. For a state like ours, which is security sensitive state, I believe Aadhaar has been doing wonderful, and we all know that what benefits. In fact, we have been leading from the front. IT department is doing like in all UTs and states. I believe that some disruptive technologies or some innovation is required for detecting the fraud and the kind of misuse of Aadhaar which is happening, especially seeing the topography, like the borders are there, LOC is there, IB is there. So we must take some precautions, because of late it has been seen and found out that from many, the elements which have been neutralized there and all, they have been carrying fake Aadhaar identities, although they are the nationals of the other side and all that. So we must come up, because this is a very important thing which needs to be addressed since it is 2.0 in Aadhaar. So we need to take some measures, because it should not escalate and it should not become a pain area later. That's one thing which you can
very, very important point. I think there are new innovations, like we discussed, like the fraud detection and so on. And I think we can make several improvements to keep improving the system. There's a lot that we could do to try and improve that, certainly. Thank you. So I think with that, can we close the session?
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to the panelists for such an interesting and lucid session. And we had some nostalgia in the air with two founding members on the panel. Welcome back, sir. Maja aaya aapko sun ke. Now, I request Mr. Nadhamuni to present mementos to Professor Manindra Agrawal. To Mr. Rajesh Bansal. To Dr. Anoop Namboodiri. And to Mr. Mahesh Ramamoorthy. May I now request Mr. Rajesh Bansal to reciprocate it and present it to Mr. Nadhamuni. Thank you, sir. We now break for lunch. We have very limited time. We will be beginning our valedictory session at 2:30, and we are expecting Minister of State Mighty to be with us. So request you to reassemble back by 2:30. Thank you.